is a little explanation about inefficient mapping. And inefficient mapping is a protocol for attuning to phenomena. My name is Linda Knight, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the ways in which you can approach inefficient mapping, and I'll show some examples to help explain some of the ideas that I'm talking about. So inefficient mapping is a visual, corporeal, animated and gestural process. The mappings emerge not from separately and impartially observing, they are immersive and become part of a phenomena of moving, clustering relationalities. Inefficient mapping is a methodologic protocol for looking and mapping, not as an observational practice, but as something that is interior, shifting the energies and constituencies of phenomena. Inefficient mapping is, to quote Manning, a duration expressed in and with phenomena. The inefficient descriptor in inefficient mapping is purposefully used. Inefficiency is a word of resistance and of speculation. Inefficiency resists order, resists regulation, and resists maintaining a cool distance from the subject and the striving for neutrality and impartiality. Placing the term inefficient within the label of a research methodology purposefully resists the dominance of quantified, rationalised approaches to knowledge acquisition in research, and how that dominance also refers to the subjective privilege of the usual beneficiaries of research. Inefficiency is affirmative because it cherishes and salutes the complex imperfections of life, how lives chaotically intersect in perpetually unpredictable and unrepeatable ways, and how those lives intersect with matter and with non-human and inhuman others. Inefficiency takes note of the scale of the researcher in this enormous shifting landscape and acknowledges that a researcher can notice some but never all of what is there. At first glance, inefficient mappings have the appearance of art drawings. Certainly they are drawn. Appearance should not ascertain whether inefficient mappings are the same as fine art drawings, however. The purpose of inefficient mappings is to map phenomena rather than to draw it. How is mapping different to making a drawing of a place? How is abstracted mapping different to an abstracted spatial or landscape drawing? Conventionally, maps are produced sometimes as a document, sometimes ephemerally as a walk, or through scratching in the dirt. And these offer an orientation. Purposes or reasons for those orientations are varied and assume different expectations of the map. These include to be readable and informative, to use legends and schematic symbols to help direct other people who are not involved in making the map or who are unfamiliar with a location. It helps them orient themselves to that place. Or it might be to orient very few others for very specific purposes. And these might be to locate a protected, culturally sensitive location that is closed to the public. The expectations of the inefficient mappings are that they may contain abstract lines and marks that may not be generally readable by others, but they are highly functional to the person who created them because they remind and reconnect to the place where they were created. So there's no prior video or photography capture of the place. When mapping, the eyes dart about and make marks of movements and details as they are noticed in location. The lines and marks in inefficient mappings are tracings of the edges generated by fleeting and shifting movements of things overlaid in time and crossing over in space. The mappings become a composition of multiple edges as they appear on different visual and sensorial registers of the place. They are a noticing rather than an ordering, a fixing or validating of what is going on. This example um, ex- uh, shows how edges and regionalities are noted. This map was created as part of my project in non-human play in urban commonplaces. I visited a local reservoir that is also a water and nature park. I focused on the play activities of inhuman and non-human visitors. These include insects, pollen, breezes, sunlight, dust, particles, birds, and plants. The image is comprised of a series of maps that emerged as I attuned to the regionalities that became apparent through the edges which appeared as sunlight and dust, leaves, vegetation, stones and dirt moved and played amongst each other in phenomena. As I walked some of the tracks, I looked for the shape of edges that came into sharp focus. Where I saw edges, I traced them onto the paper. I did not look at the paper as I did this. The mark was generated as a result of my eye and hand working as closely as possible. Some of the edges that appeared included an insect zipping in front of leaves and bushes, the shapes of the sunlight on doused branches, leaves, rocks, moats, and the edges made by breezes as they moved the arrangements of things, and as dust and pollen went up my nose and the sunlight hit my eyes in disorienting flashes. I did not manage to see everything, and this was because my eyes were darting here and there, making quick marks and scratches with my pencil on a pad of tracing film as I walked. And I followed a series of methodologic protocols. I made sure that I walked while mapping. I held the tracing pad flat against my body to make marks without looking at the pad. I also focused on the inhuman play in the space and to map that as I walked. I made a number of different mappings and randomly layered them as you see here. So I'll now discuss some practices of mapping inefficiently via a number of protocols that I've used in my work in these non-inhuman urban citizenship project. I'll include examples of mappings. However, the discussion and examples should not determine how all inefficient mapping is to be done. I simply offer here some prompts and ideas for sparking independent experimentation and the devising of your own protocols in relation to your own projects. So the first thing I'd like to talk about are materials. Maps can be made using different material combinations and different forms of technology. This second map was created using a combination of gestural pencil marks onto tracing film placed over a black and white photograph. Each layer is an account of the same location, and each record inhuman and non-human citizens in the urban context. The layering of the abstract drawn pencil marks over the photograph, taken at the same time as the mapping, shows how different visualization modes can be collated if desired. In this example, the layering accentuates how different imagery records phenomena and how they are both partial, even though photography is commonly regarded as capturing a comprehensive record of the world. And I refer here to the work of Roland Barthes particularly. In this third example, a single layer image is created using pencil on cartridge paper, and this is and then this one is a digital mapping of human hands as they used virtual reality headsets and equipment. This mapping was created on an iPad using an Apple Pencil and the Sketches app produced by Teosui. So these examples show how maps are not restricted by material or technology. The materials and technologies that are used might alter the appearance of maps, but in each case, the examples included here are effectively recording aspects of phenomena. The materials and technologies do have material agency, however. For example, maps can be different sizes. I've created maps as small as 10 by 8 centimetres, such as the one here, and as large as 60 centimetres by 150 centimetres, such as in this example. In each instance, the dimensions and material quality of the mapping surface determines how the body accommodates different materials within space, and how the durability and fragility of the surface is negotiated and honoured by the body and the surfaces where the paper is placed, and how the mark-making tools negotiate that durability and fragility. Other aspects of phenomena also have material impact. The atmospheric impact of different weather conditions, the light quality, the wind all generate their own contribution to the mapping, affecting the marks made, leaving their own imprints and marks, and determining the content of the maps in various ways. As an example, the digital map was created indoors in an air-conditioned room with electric lighting. I sat on a chair observing the hand movements as a person as they wore and used VR headset and gloves. The room was quiet and my view was not interrupted for the duration of the mapping exercise. By contrast, in this map, this was created outside in the middle of a windy rainstorm. I sat on wet grass and draped the very large paper over my legs and onto the grass either side of me. I wore a peaked cap to keep the raindrops out of my eyes. I mapped the playful behaviour of wind and palm trees as I tried to avoid pushing the graphite stick and charcoal stick through the soggy paper. The wind caused the paper to whip up around me and I had to work quickly before the rain completely ripped the paper apart. In each of these examples, the energies and materialities of phenomena add to the mapping equipment and the map maker, leaving imprints and traces in and on the maps in physical and metaphysical ways. So next I'll move on to mark making. Mark making is a vital aspect of inefficient mapping because the marks convey the traces of things noticed in phenomena. To echo what I've just said above, the mark making produced in inefficient mapping emerge through the modes of different drawing practices, hand rendered, objects rendered, digitally rendered being some examples. However, they are not fine art drawings because the intentions and contexts for making fine art drawings differ to the intentions and context for mapping inefficiently. The scope of marks that are possible are impacted on by tools and surfaces, as well as the material and effective conditions of the event that are such as I've just described. Other factors also increase the range of marks possible. The amount of pressure applied can increase the breadth and or density of a mark. A pencil or charcoal stick can produce many different grades of thickness and density depending on the pressure exerted by a combination of muscles in the hand and arm. Density and pressure adjustments in a digital pencil are often achieved through increased pressure combined with adjusted speed. So it's possible in a digital form to make different types of marks too. The direction of the gestural mark, such as exerting pressure in the away stroke or in the return stroke, this again on the iPad with a digital pencil, also produces a range of effects. Tool grip generates different marks because each grip, prompted by signal sequences between the brain, eye and muscles, make the tools work differently. So all of the non-digital examples I've shown were created by holding the drawing tools in a fist grip, like this. And the fist grip is highly effective for inefficient mapping because the combined movements of the wrist, arm and shoulder muscles make marks that are completely unlike the habitual and familiar marks we make when writing or drawing. And the muscles, tools and eyes have to work hard to remain in communication while mapping, and this maintains a connection and presence in and with the happenings of phenomena. The fist grip also enables mapping without looking, so the attention is turned toward the energies and events going on all around. Digital mapping, such as including here, was created using a tripod grip, which is like this, holding something between, there we go, like this. And so it's held between the thumb and the first two fingers. Like the fist grip, the tripod grip is an uncommon grip, which reduces the probability of making traces disconnected from what is noted and experienced in phenomena. The fist grip and tripod grip enact different relationalities between bodies and materials during an act of drawing, and this relationality remains present because the body and drawing materials can't fall into their usual habitual interactions. When we use a pen to write, for example, we often do so through those habits of use. We don't try and hold the pen differently each time. We write in our usual way. Consequently, our focus is on the words and message of the note, not on how our hand is using the pen. So using different grips reveals and maintains that relationality and also our presence on and an active and effective part of phenomena. The uncommon grip enables tools and muscles to work in particular ways to activate a form of mark making by quivering. Mapping in situ while not looking at the surface demands a highly attuned connection in and with the space. The tools for mapping, including a marking tool and a surface, are felt rather than seen. The tools for mapping, including a marking tool, I've read the same line again. They are not static, but quiver with and against the body, and against sun, wind, temperature, and sweat. And there's more work written on quivering by scholars such as Stephanie Springay and Sarah E. Truman, if you're interested in that concept of quivering. They are in the act of mapping in this kind of quick, frenzied movement. They are materially affecting what Philip Vanini, a non-representational theorist and methodologist, describes as, quote, the body's kinesthetic and intuitive power to produce certain effects, whether expected or unexpected, intended or unintended, end quote, of the movements, energies and affects present. Whether walking the terrain or standing still, inefficiently mapping duration and movement is an exercise in how visually to convey the vibrancy and animacies of matter that are moving at different scales, even when they are seemingly inert. So you can see how this notion of quivering might be a good way to kind of try and record that in the mappings. And then the next one I'd like to talk about is layering. Layering is an important aspect of the inefficient mapping. As it to layer the maps, I'll just pull this one up again, either digitally through a drawing program or materially by drawing the maps on tracing film and physically stacking them, as is the case in this one. Layering can occur in situ while mappings are being produced or sometime after. In these examples that I've shown you here, the paper-based maps are layered on a light box and photographed. That's why you can see them all. And you can see they're a little bit paler, the bottom layers, as they're on tracing film. The maps can be layered in different configurations. They can be organised in layers by date or location, or maps created at different times and of different things can be layered together, so in a kind of random collection. The same collection of maps can also be layered in different orders to emphasise different aspects. The paper-based maps are created on tracing film because its translucency allows for the slow disappearance of marks and details as they are glimpsed through the layers. The higher the number of layers, the more the lower maps disappear into the murk. The effect of this disappearing is a visualisation of the histories, affects and non-representational qualities of a place, and how these energetically simmer without being fully articulated. Non-representational aspects can ignite an affective feeling or a sense of a place, so the layering is a methodologic protocol that adds durationally to the spatial focus of each mapping, visualizing how phenomena emerge through regionalities and affective registers. The layering doesn't follow a single rule. As mentioned above, the mappings can be layered differently, so the particularity of each of those arrangements is also a methodologic protocol for visualizing the rich particularity of different movements and sequences in phenomena, and how ideas about phenomena are informed by immanent and speculative theories. And layering also conveys how body movements and quivers are not representationally obvious in the maps, but are imperceptibly contained in the energized marks and recordings. The maps are created in situ, but do not schematically represent a place. They are speculatively and immanently the place, although they exist as both and neither. So, inefficient mapping is a deeply attentive process. As with other non-representational methodologies, inefficient mapping is concerned with disrupting the habits of collating aspects into over-coded schema by noticing the partialities of things that might be difficult to describe. It does this by recording movements across times and spaces, and by maintaining these in the marks that are generated. So to finish, I encourage you to experiment with this mapping process using protocols relative to your research projects and interests, and I hope you find it as challenging and provoking as I do. Thank you.